Hi, my name is Daniel Kitson. I've been teaching guitar and bass for 3 years now as my kind of main source of income. There have been people who have obviously done this a lot longer than I have, but I thought I'd share some encouragement for people who are trying to learn some music. Over the time I've been teaching, I've developed a bit of a process that I work through with students when they're faced with new sheet music, whether that's notation, like reading notes on a staff, or whether it's tablature for guitar and then bass students specifically. And I thought I'd share this with you now today. Before we even get to learning music though, we need to find the right motivation to help us actually get there. It can definitely be daunting thinking about practicing. It's something I've struggled with before, definitely. But something I find that helps is just having the guitars actually out, so I think you can see the bass. And I find it so much more helpful just having it right there. Don't need to worry about setting it up too much, it's just ready to go. Because so much of the daunting thing to think about with practicing is like setting it up, getting things out of the case and all that stuff. But if it's just right there ready to go, I find it a lot easier to just pick it up and have a play. So now that the instrument's actually in the hands, we have to think about what we're actually going to learn. And how we're going to learn it is an important thing to think about. So the first thing to do when learning some music is to find the notes. This might be like some sheet music or something, if you have access to that, or you might be trying to learn something by ear and trying to transcribe it as well. Either or is perfectly good and fine. It's good to do both things. But yeah, as long as you have some form of the notes in front of you, so you know exactly what you're aiming to achieve. If you're just starting to learn to read sheet music, then take your time with it. There's no stress. It's just you doing it at your own pace is a good way to go about it. Because if you're new to it, then you are learning a whole new language, a whole new written language that you're trying to decipher. So yeah, don't worry about going too fast or anything. Just make sure you have it all right as you go, and then again, just worry about playing later. We'll get there, but for now, we're just figuring out what all the notes actually are. So if you want to start getting a bit quicker at reading sheet music, there's a few ways that you can improve on that. So number one is to get mnemonic devices. Maybe that might help you thinking about the words and connecting the first letter to what the letter is on the clef. So you might have a treble clef. On the lines you have E, G, B, D, F. So you might say, okay, every good boy deserves fruit, and that might be a way for you to try and remember that. If you do think a bit more mathematically, then when you're moving up the staff, you move through the alphabet. So for example, if you're on maybe the middle line of treble clef, that's a B, and you're trying to figure out what the note on the next line above it is, you could count, okay, I know what B is, count up to the next space, that's C, okay, count up to D. Okay, right, so moving through the alphabet, I'm counting that way. And the same way when you're going downwards, you're going backwards through the alphabet. So once you've figured out what the notes actually are, you have to figure out how you're physically going to make the sound happen. For guitar and bass, this means finding the right frets that'll make things kind of easy to play and maybe flow nicely, so you're not having to do weird shifts or stretches or anything. And another part of it is also finding the right sound you want, because depending where you are on the string, it might produce different sounds and you might be looking for different things. And it's good to think about it now, so you don't have to stress about it while you're trying to practice it. Like, you can figure it out now, that's your plan, just learn that specific thing rather than changing things as you practice. This is also a good opportunity to plan ahead for some technique kind of aspects of your practice if you want to do that. So for example, again with the guitar, you might be wanting to use your pinky a little bit more because you think you're a bit weak with it. So in that case, you can maybe target your pinky a little bit and use it a bit more than you normally would, or include it in your plan that you haven't really done previously or something like that. Now's a chance to kind of target those things and come up with a plan for how you're going to tackle that. So we've figured out the notes, we've got a physical plan for how we're going to do it. So the next thing is to just do it at the right time. And now we're thinking about the rhythms. I encourage all my students to use metronomes when they're practicing, and I often use one in lessons too, so they get used to how it feels. The one I use is Pro Metronome. You can get it for free, but you can also upgrade to get some extra like polyrhythm and random extra stuff, which is pretty cool to have. So when working with the metronome, especially if you're not very used to it, set it super low, so kind of in the range of 60 to 80 BPM probably. Setting it at this slower speed just gives you time to think about what you're doing, because you do have a lot to think about already, because you're thinking about what the notes actually are, thinking about how you specifically wanted to play them, so that's already lots of things going on. So giving your brain time to think about it is really important. And then once you're comfortable at it at a certain speed, you can start increasing, usually by like 5 to 10 BPM is a good range. And as you get into the quicker tempos, you can start increasing by bigger amounts because the size between them gets smaller. So something else to think about when you're practicing with the metronome is how much of the song you're practicing, because you don't really want to be doing the whole thing every time. I mean, some people do, that's a way of practicing, but I think it can also be pretty efficient to do 2 to 4 bar phrases. and split it up kind of, again, mathematically into those little chunks, so that when you're comfortable with those little bits, then you can put it all together, and usually it kind of works out okay. So when you are playing with the metronome, it's important to let the metronome decide the timing for you. Something I see every now and then is people trying to fight the metronome, so maybe going faster or slower and not really letting it decide the time. And another thing is just ignoring the metronome, which we don't want to do, because otherwise what's the point of having it there? And again, that's why it's important to go slow, so that you have time to process all this stuff. So overall, when you're practicing, we thought about all these very specific things, but there's kind of a mindset switch you can have, which can achieve different things. So one of them is to kind of practice in rehearsal mode or practice mode, which is where you might be playing through a thing, and then you stop when you mess up, and you really focus on that little thing that made you mess up until you feel more comfortable with it, and then you carry on and you get to the next little hurdle, and then you really work on that. Another way to do it is to perform it a little bit more, so try and play through it, get used to the form of the thing, and get used to playing whatever you're playing all the way through, so you get a feeling for how long something might be. And when you're in this performance mode, you can kind of just blow past mistakes, and the challenge at that point is to try and know where you are in the song so that you can jump back in where you're supposed to be. Something I ended up telling myself a little bit through my uni degree was it's just notes. So the notes themselves I could play out of time, like just one at a time. I could do that, that's not too hard. But putting them together in time was where things started to get tricky. And I think this can be a helpful way to think about practice, because it just forces you to think, okay, let's just get the notes first, and then we'll deal with the rest later. And it's just breaking up that process into little bits, which might be a bit more manageable, rather than trying to tackle all of it at once. The most important thing with all of this, as I've been saying through all I've been saying, is to just go really slow and to not put too much pressure on yourself. You know, you're not competing against anyone, you're not racing against anyone, you're just going at your own pace, and don't rush into stuff. And of course, the reason it's getting so hard at this point is because you're multitasking all of these thoughts in your brain at one time, which is, again, why you need that time just to get used to it. All the things I've talked about, though, you get quicker with time as you do it more and more. And soon, it just becomes a skill and a bit of an instinct that you don't really have to think about. And that's what a lot of pro musicians are kind of doing when they're playing stuff. They're not thinking step by step about all of this. They're just doing it because they've done it that many times, and it becomes kind of a second nature kind of thing. Just like reading a book or something, you start reading the words as a kid and it's really hard because you don't know what they mean, and then you find out what they mean because you've read plenty of books in your lifetime or whatever, and then you can read stuff out loud straight away without needing to break anything down into steps. You don't need to practice the words, you can just kind of do it. This does, though, take a long time, because if you think about when you're a kid, it takes you years and years and years to get comfortable with speaking before you can just read out loud in public with no prior practice. Not everyone can do that, even as an adult. So it does take a lot of time, especially with music stuff. And if you're trying to learn it as an adult, then, make sure you are patient with yourself, because you might be good at some stuff already, and that can maybe put some pressure on what you're trying to learn now, because you think that you should already be good at it. But no, just slow down, take your time with it, no rush. As I said before, you're not competing against anyone else. So thank you for listening and for watching this video. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me, leave a comment, or you can email me. I think I've got my email in the About page on my channel. And you can contact me on social media and stuff as well. That's all good. I'm always happy to help. So if something in this video wasn't clear, then please contact me and I'm happy to explain it further and have a discussion with you. That'll be really cool. Have a good one.